self-worth should be how you as yourself view yourself, but a lot of my self-worth was based so much on what other people said about me. It really stops becoming about motivation at a certain point, because motivation is something you need to rely on to get through the hard times, to push through to get to a bigger goal. Whereas these things of getting up and going to gym, now it's just habit.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Switch On with myself, Kyle Clark, a show curated to be the most beautiful love letter to our generation. It's the guidance you never knew you needed from the people you wanted to hear it from the most. I'm so grateful to bring you guys with us, and do me a favor, leave a review, drop your comments. We want you guys to share the moments that inspire you. On today's show, we sit down with iconic South African model, TV personality, TV presenter, actress, entrepreneur, and mogul, Shashi Naidoo, as she takes us through the journey of life in front of the camera. Shashi gives us the real truth as to how she has dealt with cyberbullying, and we dive deep into how rejection in her industry has taught her to be as tall as the giant she is today. It's time to switch on. Welcome to the show, my love.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. We were just talking about a story earlier that when I was younger, I came through to Alushi Models and they replied to me, absolutely incredible. Yay for me. Congratulations on everything that you've done over the years.
Thank you so much.
You have really evolved. Like you went from modeling to being an entrepreneur to TV to acting. How has the journey been for you so far? Ups and downs?
Of course, I think every journey has its ups and downs. Otherwise, it's not a journey.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think you'd want to be on it. If it was just all smooth sailing, I think it would get a little bit boring. I started off studying chiropractic and then got discovered. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I finished that in 2007.
That's incredible.
So I moved to Johannesburg from PE to start that, and then got discovered as a model, I think in my second or third year. I was busy handing off flowers at an ad agency. And they were like, "What, are you here for the casting?" I'm like, "What's a casting?"
I'm not quite sure.
So I did the casting and got the job, and that was my start in modeling.
That's incredible. And I mean, you know, just looking from the outside into your life, it has evolved incredibly. And I think you have so many different characteristics behind you. What has been your biggest pillar of strength, like let's say in the past 5 years?
I think I'm relentless, you know, when I have something that I want, I won't stop until I kind of achieve that. And also I get bored pretty quickly, which is a weakness, but it means that there will be constant evolution in what I do. I would give you an example of, I started modeling and then wanted to pursue a career in modeling. I don't think anyone wakes up and thinks, I'm so fabulous, I want to be a model. Yeah. But I thought I could do more in that field. And then at that time, there were no modeling agencies that accepted you unless you were size 0 or you're 175. Yeah. So there was all these roadblocks to getting into the industry, and I couldn't understand why. Like they take a picture with a camera, you can't see how tall you are. So that's when I decided to start Alushi. So things that could be potential obstacles, I kind of shifted and were like, okay, screw that, I'm going to start my own modeling agency then.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And I mean, listening to your story, have you ever taken a break, my friend? I mean, like, do you take a break? You say resilience is your biggest pillar of strength, but do you actually take a break?
So, well, now I get breaks when I go on Safari Girls, because I've just started another business out of it. We started, when lockdown really affected the travel industry in South Africa so much. Previously, these lodges were only seeing American clients. They were relying on euros, dollars, pounds. So they didn't actually market themselves to South African audience. So we had a friend that was in the travel industry, and they suggested we do a trip to try and market to a local audience. Yeah. And then from there it now has grown into an actual business and a travel booking platform, which we're quite excited about. And we've just made our first little trailer to hopefully sell a TV show.
Congratulations.
Well, it's not there yet, but
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Yes,
congratulations.
please do. Thank you.
That's amazing. And I mean, she does take a break, because Safari Girls is actually meant for her to take a break. But you're working most of the time anyway.
Most of the time. But listen, we're having fun. We're drinking. It's not exactly hard work. It's work, but it's not exactly straining.
It always looks like such a ball. Actually, I'm always just like, why am I not the one gay guy that is not on a Safari Girl?
I think you should be the next Safari Girl.
Over the years, you have had to change a lot of support systems. So how important has finding a support system been for you?
I think you don't understand the value in a support system until you kind of need one. And, I have a very strong...
Were you always looking out for yourself? Sorry.
Always.
Okay.
And I feel like I have a very strong connection with my best friend you met now, Simone and Michael.
Yeah.
And that is an actually relatively new friendship, like 2 years. And having friendships where there is kind of zero judgment, but then also understanding. I don't think I've ever quite had that and relied on it before, where, when you need someone, you can pick up the phone and they're there immediately. That for me, I've always kind of... And I'm still very... pig-headed. They tell me that all the time, that I want to do everything myself and just do it all myself, and it's really quite nice when you don't need to do that.
Do you have a problem delegating?
I do
too, so that's why I'm asking.
I've learned the art of delegating in business.
Yes.
But when it comes to emotional stuff, I tend to be, when I'm facing something difficult, I just block it off, and so there I'm still evolving and learning quite a great deal, and just how to be as a human being.
Like how to navigate your own path.
Yes.
It must have been really difficult. And I mean, kudos to your friends and the support system, because I've personally witnessed you go through the wire, and you continuously... The one thing that surprises me about you every single time is as soon as you get shut down, you rise 10 times higher. Yeah. And I've seen you do it over and over and over again. Tell me a little bit about how rejection throughout the years has either molded you or made you grow.
I think, if you talk about the kind of incidents and the big and that like life-changing, traumatizing rejection of what happened with the Palestine debacle, and I'll say it, but where that was a really massive thing, because it was something that happened completely by accident. You don't realizing that like something you do could offend, and you do something really, really stupid, and as a result, I lost every single contract I had within a matter of 48 hours.
Crazy.
And then you're dealing with public shaming, loss of income, and then it was just really important for me to take time. And I really just withdrew completely. And I was very lucky that my business kind of ran. But for a week, I stayed in bed. I did the closing my eyes and hoping everything would go away. But then it was important for me to actually, out of respect for everyone involved, kind of just take a step back. I took 3 months off of social media, where I just went dark, but then still focused on my businesses, and also just healing time, because it was a really traumatic time. I was literally getting hate mail. And that was really traumatic. And I think it had kind of affected me very long term, in the sense that a lot of the time, self-worth should be how you as yourself view yourself, but a lot of my self-worth was based so much on what other people said about me. So then you have the entire world hating you, and then your self-worth goes down to nothing. So I really had to get to a point where I was okay with myself, and then the rest grows from there. And because your self-worth really should be something that is you determined, not everybody else's opinion.
It must have been so difficult for you to go through that period. And I mean, I always give you my vote of confidence, because I saw how difficult that period of your life was. And I personally believe you actually dealt with it really beautifully, to be honest. I really think you did. How do you stop? I mean, it's so difficult for you. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I think you can be an extrovert when you need to be, but mostly a homebody.
Yeah, I'm definitely a homebody. So the best place for me to be is at home, watching Netflix. That's my favorite place to be. And I think also when I meet people, I give a lot of myself. So I'm fully switched on when I'm with you and in person, and often that can drain you a lot, which is why I prefer to, having that time. And obviously I think a lot of that maybe just comes with age. So back when I was younger, I was okay with going out all the time, but often when I'm out, I find it quite draining, and it takes me a while to recover, because you give yourself to people, you know, when you're interacting and engaging.
And it's so difficult to be on social media, and especially with the fan base that you have, and you give so much of yourself to the public, and when you receive it as a state of hate, it's so difficult to not take that personally. You know, how have you dealt with that before? It must have been difficult to even scroll.
I think
you know,
at that point, sure, it was hard, because also people confuse being a public figure to being public property.
Yes.
You know, and being they own you, and that therefore you have the right to say whatever you want. That, you know, I mean, but this is a very common thing with anyone who's in social media. Like it doesn't pertain to me or just to you, and you have to view it like that. And often, after what I'd experienced, and because it was so vast and so extreme, when I see stuff now, I swear it really doesn't even. It just floats off of me, and often I'll screenshot it and send it, and I'll have a good laugh. I'll send it to my friend, like, can you believe this? Because it's genuinely hilarious.
I've seen you share that before, and you actually laugh at the people. You're just like wow, good joke.
Are you joking? and so I think if it's someone that knows you, they really are then entitled to an opinion. But if you've never met me before, come on, how can you have an opinion on how intelligent I am, or what I wear, what I choose to post? You know, like, we actually had someone commenting on Safari Girls that this is meant to be a wildlife page. Why am I not posting enough wildlife? And, you know, we kind of do post the wildlife, but that is not what Safari Girls is. So I'm like,
you guys are like, we are the wildlife, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, there are other dedicated channels, you know, so you just go with it, and we just find it hysterical now. So you've got to get to that point, especially if you're choosing to be a public figure. I still disagree with how people choose to act, but I mean, it's not in my control, and I can't pretend that it is. It's not your place,
yeah, for sure. Let's go back a little bit, to the beginning. You know, tell me, I want to know from you, when was the moment that you realized that you need to switch on or take control of your life, and you could see that there was an opportunity for you to catapult your life into what it is at the moment? Do you remember that moment specifically when it was like, hey, I can do this?
I don't think there was an exact moment, to be honest, but I feel like there's little turning points that you have in your life, sliding doors where you can make a decision that will affect you forever. And I had to make the decision whether or not, you know, I was finishing off my community service. I had to do 2 years, and I was so anxious to tell my parents, I don't want to be a chiropractor anymore. I'm not going to practice. I'm going to finish off the community service, but that's for you. Yeah. I've done 8 years now, 6 years studying, 2 years community service. This was for you. But I want to do what is going to make me happy. So I feel like, but that took a huge amount of faith to say, okay, I've done all of this hard work towards one end, and now I'm going to study something I'm completely unqualified for, or I'm going to do something I'm completely unqualified for. And that was open. So the agency had opened when I was, I think, in my 6th year. And that was like a huge shift, and it took guts, and it also just, and I think that's the thing, people are often like really scared to just bet everything on themselves. And it's so important to sometimes say, okay, am I being completely crazy?
Is this the right thing for me?
Is it the right thing? So it requires, I think, planning and self-belief, and even if you don't have it all on your own, all these skills, because obviously but I'd been into entrepreneurship since I was 3 years old. I used to make mud pies and walk up and down and sell it to the neighbors.
Amazing.
And I used to like go up and down shining shoes for the guys in the neighborhood. That was like, I think when I was 6. Then I used to sell chocolates. That was when I first learned you can't get high in your own supply, because I ate all my profits away. So I've always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, but obviously when you're opening it on a much bigger scale, there's certain things that you can do to prepare yourself more. So I would really advise that people seek the skills of a life coach who can help you put a vision into practice.
It's so important to plan before. I always know that, you know, if you have a vision, it's really important to plan it beforehand so that it can come out the way that you're looking for it, you know. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's the truth of it. Hearing from, you know, where you started, you've actually been a businesswoman since the age of 3 and you've known exactly what it takes to get you. But it also sounds like you've also done a lot of throwing yourself into uncomfortable situations.
And I think you constantly need to do that. You know, I started Alushi Aesthetics 5 years ago, and now we are moving to Xanton. And that was like a whole different ball game, because you're talking about its actual treatments, and I've never been involved in aesthetics, but it was something that I wanted to do. And these are skills that are not like, you're not born with these skills. So everyone says, oh, this one's doing this, but like, I don't have those skills. These are all things that you can learn, but you have to be willing to grow. And I think as an entrepreneur, everyone asks, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? And I think it's the willingness to learn, to be uncomfortable, to take risks to a huge extent. There is a lot of risk involved. No matter what you say, it's a lot of risk.
A lot of jumps.
And the ability to save and manage your own finances. I think that's super important.
It's so incredible to hear you say that, because I mean, for me specifically, grit is such a massive part of it. I had to learn how to jump into uncomfortable situations and deal with it at the same time. And when you throw yourself in the deep end, it's like a sink or swim moment for you.
Absolutely.
And that anxiety that comes with that uncomfortability is so unbearable. Actually, it's very unbearable. But you learn how to deal with it. I probably
like a little bit of a sadist, because I think that anxiety is kind of what drives me to push me forward. Like, I actually like that fighting that I need to fight now.
That fight or flight mode.
Yes.
Okay.
So I feel like if you're, I don't know if it's a word, but a jobbinier, I think there's a part of you that likes...
It's a new word now.
Now it's a word. There's a comfort that comes with this, that you've got a job to do, you know what you do, and you perform within a certain set of roles. But no one can really prepare you for the job of an entrepreneur. One minute you're doing marketing, the next minute you're doing accounting, you're paying people, you're doing client services.
You're everything
and everyone to everyone, everything to everyone. So I like that feeling, and I think that's really what drives me, that no 2 days are the same. I think if I had to wake up and put on like something and every day look the same, I think I would go mad.
You would go crazy.
Yes. And I think that's the minute that starts happening, because even in a business it can start looking that way, and the minute that happens, I start looking for something new to venture into.
That's so true. Look, being an entrepreneur is the most loneliest journey ever. I'm sure that you can relate to that. Have you, over the years, building I'm going to call it the empire that you currently have at the moment, over the years building this empire, have you felt really lonely through this journey? Because not everyone understands.
I feel so I've based now, I've built a name called Alushi, which is the Alushi Models, and now Alushi Aesthetics. So one of the things is creating, and I like the word that you used, empire. Yes. So also I run and manage Airbnbs, where I own and run them as Airbnbs. So that's another side of the business, property, and I'm running it all under the name Alushi. So that name in itself means something to me, and it has to have credibility and respect. So in part of doing that and sustaining a brand over 15 years, which is when I started Alushi Models, means you run your business with ethics. And I've noticed, so whatever that means, to keep that name squeaky clean, means if a client doesn't pay me, I still need to pay the model.
Correct.
And often when you have employees, even at Alushi Aesthetics, we were shut for 5 months. So we weren't able to open
during
as
COVID.
A spa, and I paid all my staff in full 100% of their salary.
That's incredible.
And that took a lot. And often you do that, and I literally had one, and I was literally one of the only, in no other spa that I know was doing that.
Yeah.
But I think one staff member messaged me and said, thank you so much, every month when they got their salary.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not something but I mean, yes, it is lonely when you're making a plan for everyone and no one can kind of see your perspective in this is what I'm doing. So yes, it's a very thankless job being on top. And yes, but yes, when things are going amazingly well, it's wonderful. But staff just take for granted like good working environment, but it doesn't matter. You just have to keep on doing it. You can't do it for the thanks. You have to do it for yourself ultimately.
Yeah, and no one really sort of, as you said, they don't understand your perspective, because essentially if you look at what you're building, you are responsible for so many people.
Yes.
And it goes back to your own self-worth. Like if you're not waking up at a certain time, you are in a space where, you don't have a choice.
Yes.
You don't. You cannot wake up and decide, okay, this is a bad day, because you actually realize I have 100 employees that I need to take care of. And those 100 employees have families,
Exactly. And that, I think that kind of drives me in a way.
That's amazing.
It really did drive me in lockdown, because I think all of us wanted to just hide under a cover. When things were really bad, I literally did take strength in, you know what, I'm doing this for my staff and I will get through and I have no choice in the matter. That was really when push came to shove and you can't just write CEO as your Instagram.
Yeah, as your handle.
That's when it came, you know, crunch time.
That's crazy. It's so beautiful to hear different entrepreneurs' perspectives on the responsibility of having employees with you all the time. You know, you honestly sound like you've had to do a lot of self-motivation, and it's only come from you. So tell me a little bit about the rituals that you have in place that always keeps you motivated.
So I'm, you know, they have the 5 a.m. club.
I love the 5 a.m. club.
So I'm a little bit earlier than that. I'm the crazy 4 a.m. club.
Really?
Yes.
Have you always been like that from a kid though? Or no?
It's so weird because my mother used to think she was completely cuckoo. So she wakes up at 3 a.m.
Yeah, my granny.
So mine just starts getting earlier and earlier the older I get. So like now I'm on like 3:30 alarm. Like, please God, don't let me start becoming. Yes, I'll wake up and then I'll go online, read some articles, and then by 4 a.m. I'm up, like just doing a little bit of spring cleaning, and then I hit the gym. And a lot of people say it's about motivation, but it really stops becoming about motivation at a certain point, because motivation is something you need to rely on to get through the hard times, to push through to get to a bigger goal. Whereas these things of getting up and going to gym, now it's just habit. So I think, yes, getting you there and getting through a certain thing is motivate yourself and prep yourself. But I promise you, after you've gone through a cycle of 21 days, you're just waking up and doing it.
Yeah.
And even to an extent, the work, what comes at me, I do. And then I think for me, my friends laugh at me that, like, I'm obsessed with work. Like, I'll have a drink with him and all I want to do is talk about work.
Yeah.
And they're like,
can you give us a moment, please?
So the creativity behind you know, what to do next and what to do in business, and that for me is the fun part. So getting through the day and, you know, writing it down and just being organized and planning your day meticulously, that sort of stuff is really not about motivation anymore. It just becomes a part of your life. Taking aside 5 minutes to meditate, to be quiet with yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people skip that part, to be honest.
They do.
You know, it's just about sitting, even if you're just making it with your morning cup of coffee, just taking time to reflect, and as part of planning your day, it's a really important time. For me, it's gym. Like when I'm in the gym,
that's your therapy.
It really is.
Yeah,
and people can't understand it unless you're actually doing it. And I only started gymming in my 30s. Like, I'm 40 now, and I started gymming when I would say 30. In the beginning, it was a pain. I hated it.
Yeah.
And now I cannot live without it.
That's incredible. How did you ingrain all of these rituals, like your meditation, and you're saying 21 days in terms of building a new habit? How did you ingrain all of these rituals? Because I mean, from my perspective, I can tell you it's been difficult, you know, it's difficult to set, and I don't know why, but I'm sure I speak for a lot of people, it's difficult to set those 10 minutes aside to journal, or those 10 minutes aside to meditate and find your peace.
So I think that is why they talk about being the 5 a.m. club, and why people who wake up at that time are so much more successful than other people. And the reason for me behind that is, if you're going to try and stick in gym at 4 a.m. or just whenever you can make time, it never becomes a priority.
Yep.
So for me, I find all these things that I have to get done before my phone starts ringing, before anyone else is awake. Just do it in the morning, set aside that time, and just really, what are these important things that you need to do? Morning is always best because your phone's not ringing, there's no disruptions to it, and then it just becomes a part of your daily life.
And do you find those morning rituals in the beginning actually sets you up for your day, and then the rest of your day is actually not that chaotic?
Yes, absolutely. So there's some days, like actually this morning, I woke up and I had like a really sore neck, so I said, I'm not going to go. And I actually was, and I was saying to Simone, because she's sitting outside, I said, I'm actually really moody today, and I'm not a moody person ever. Like it's like not a normal concept for me. I don't wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And I think it's because I miss gym. So these things kind of help me deal with the rest of my day better.
Do you talk to yourself? So just hearing of how missing a certain ritual affects your mental health. Do you find yourself in spaces of, I've missed gym, I've missed my meditation, so you self-sabotage yourself for the rest of the day?
Probably. I'm more inclined with myself to believe I didn't get my endorphin rush.
Yes.
And I do think there is a thing, and a lot of people do this, and it's something I was guilty at, but I really focus on it, that our thoughts, I mean, do you know how many thoughts we have in a minute, in an hour?
So many.
And all these thoughts, they affect you. So if your overriding thought is negativity and you are unkind to yourself, how do you expect to feel like this beautiful, amazing, I'm going to take over the world person, if all the thoughts you have are negative and draining? So even if you have to create affirmations and you're just saying them and you're forcing yourself initially to them, but I sometimes even catch myself being hard on myself, and I have to stop that thought process because it is what it is, and you've got to be gentle with yourself. Would you say that to anyone else?
Yeah.
If I wouldn't talk to you like that, then why would I be talking to myself like that?
A lot of people, and I know this for a fact because it's something I had to go through also, is you go through that negative thought pattern, but you try to flip it, but that thought just stays there all the time. So like for you, how have you managed to flip it? Because it sounds like you ask yourself questions, you know?
I think, I'm a big advocate for therapy. And if there is really an overriding negative thought that you can't get rid of, then maybe you should speak to someone about it. Why is it? Why is that thought continually reoccurring? What can you do to change that perception of yourself? Because it really is so important to just be kind as you would to others, be to yourself.
So crazy. I completely agree with you. It's really just been an incredible journey of trying to continuously not self-sabotage myself, but also put myself into a space of, you know, being able to flip my negative thoughts into things that are positive, you know? And I like what you said earlier when you're talking about your thoughts, you say to yourself, would I say that to anyone else? You know, would I think this out loud? If it doesn't make any sense out loud, why does it make sense up here?
Yes.
You know, and you can sort of change the trajectory of your entire life just by what really goes on up here every single day.
Absolutely.
You know?
And even if, like we were talking about affirmations, I think that's important. You know, I don't really do that now. Maybe I should start doing it again. But affirmations and saying things that you want to be true, they don't have to be true. Yeah. But you want that. Like, I am beautiful. I have the most amazing body. You just say these things of the person you want to be. I'm kind, I'm beautiful, I'm generous, I'm all these things. I think it's just say them out loud as part of your morning ritual.
You speak a lot about kindness, and I believe you are really kind ever since we started talking. Like, you have always been very warming, in a place that you have a really good warmth around you, and the energy is always around you. How have you built that over the years?
So it's such an important thing to be kind, and even when I employ people, it's one of the things that I speak about in a culture of what I want in my office space and what I would like to have around me constantly. And I don't allow negativity in my space, even in my workspace. We have a culture of kindness, and I breed that in everyone that surrounds me. If I have a person that is negative and I feel that often, I cut them out. I genuinely do. Like initially I will talk about it, and I think it's so important when you're younger. These are things you weren't brave enough to do. You kind of accepted when someone was toxic or unkind. If I spot that, I really don't need it around me. So I choose to distance that from myself, because if it's in my circle, it's going to affect me, and I don't like it. So that's it. But if you're someone who has your own business, you're able to create the culture that you want around me. And I'm happy to say that in the environment, at work, wherever, and if I see anything that would make me uncomfortable, I say something, and you learn to address it. You have to.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And I also really want to go back to your circle. You know, what I've seen, and I really like this podcast because I do view how people portray themselves on social media. And I mean, we've never met. This is probably the first time that we've met, but we have spoken before. And you always come across as someone that's very neutral. You know, there can be chaos around you, but you come from a place that someone's very neutral, very calm. If it's not my place, I won't say anything. I'm not here to comment on what you were doing. I'm more focusing on my own journey.
So I think going back to that very traumatic experience that I had, it kind of fundamentally changed me on so many levels. But again, what had happened at the time, if I can go briefly on it, is that I posted a picture of black coffee, and someone said, how could you post this picture with black coffee? He's a Zionist, he's performed in Israel.
Yeah.
And I went to his defense and said no. And I didn't even know what they were talking about. So I Googled it, and Black Coffee had said, look, music should bring the world together, not tear it apart. And I quoted that. And then they'd kind of gone more in. And then I messaged, I just come back. It was like 6 a.m. I was in Ibiza at the time. I couldn't even see straight. I'd messaged one of my friends, what should I respond to this? And then I got this long essay. And I'm like, with one eye, that sounds so smart. Copy, paste. Went to sleep and woke up to like people trying to bang down my door. Like, have you seen what's going on?
Okay.
It was really, really bad. So you also learn that social media is not the place for your any kind of opinion. It's a place of pretty things and nice, and I can have these kind of discussions with my close friends. It's really not the platform for it, and I don't want to get into intense personal debate. It's not a personal thing for me. Instagram is not. I'm not going to put my journal sessions with myself and my diary. I don't do like subtweeting where you say something about someone else but mean for them to read it and know that it's
like an underlined cut,
Yeah, no,
not that kind of girl.
Instagram's not for me. That place.
Yeah.
So I can have that for my journal.
That's incredible.
But I do think it's important to, and especially then what you learn is if you're not knowledgeable on something, don't have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
Rather just keep quiet. And if you are passionate about something and you do feel like posting about it, sure, go ahead, but then be prepared for what's going to come back. Don't just think you're allowed to have your opinion and then no one's allowed to respond to you. That's just not, it's not that place, love.
That must have been the most traumatic morning for you, waking up the next morning, one eye open in the middle of Ibiza, and you copied pasted something that was just I'm just thinking of the absolute chaos that was happening in your head at the moment. You're probably like, what the hell?
Just like words can't even explain what was going on, and like the anger, and then people call me like, did you mean? I'm like, no, I don't even know what Gaza is. And then I just realized, okay, like my politics really needs some brushing up, my geography needs like everything. Like I was blissfully unaware and thought it was okay. And the person that had said this to me had given me kind of their perspective, and I thought, well, they're intelligent, level-minded. Yeah. But it certainly wasn't my opinion, so don't make... Yeah. That's
crazy. Let's talk a little bit about your circle. Over the years, what I'm hearing, the two friends that I think that have been very consistent in your life is Ryan and Simon.
Yes, Ryan is still around. Good old
Ryan. Crazy, he used to be my teacher, actually.
Oh, my dancing.
Yes, he used to be my teacher. And I want to talk a little bit about your circle, because a lot of people know you, but what I've noticed about you is that you keep your circle very close and very tight-knit. Have you had to let go of a lot of people over your years?
I definitely. Look, I still have friends from, I was maid of honor for my friend from high school. So I still have and have kept close friends with me, but geography has kind of kept it so that you don't see everyone very often. Yeah. But definitely, and I think when I was younger, it was so important for me to have a million friends. And I remember having my 27th birthday, and I only had 270 of my closest friends.
Okay.
And
you were like my closest friends, 270.
And that was like super important, that I could be, that I felt popular. But I don't have that hang up anymore where it's so important for me, and because you can't maintain that level of friendship with everyone. And at a time I tried, but it's very draining, and and what friendship should give you is joy and love and a place of peace to escape to. But when you have your phone ring, my phone would ring nonstop. So I kind of don't, like, I would say, look, I'm really, really busy, and then we can have a group something every now and then. But the people that you really, really give your time to, I think you've got to be selective. And again, positivity. Ryan must be the most positive person I know, and just a kind human being, and he doesn't tolerate. And that's actually who I learned a lot of what I'm saying to you now about not tolerating hatred or negativity. Because if people would vent to me before or be ugly or gossip, I would not necessarily, but I would listen. And he's someone that has really taught me that you don't have to tolerate that. If someone wants to be gossip about that, want to say horrible things, or just not, you don't have to sit around and listen. Just say, look.
So true. It must have been very difficult for you to also make friends in the industry. Because
no, not really. I've never had a problem making a friend. Yeah,
that's incredible. That's amazing.
I've never.
Well, you are a very neutral person, so I think you are very approachable. You always have been very, very approachable.
Yeah, I'm a real girls girl. I prefer hanging out with girls.
So am I.
People say, oh, I have struggled making female friends. I don't have that problem, and I think I'm lucky in that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Letting go of these toxic friendships and relationships over the years, I'm sure it must have had a very emotional effect on you, because, you went from 270 friends on your 27th birthday to like 3, 4 or 5.
I think everyone like breakups. If you have a very important friendship, often those really big friendships, and something happens where it actually is like a breakup. I've had that. And that is as traumatizing or more than a relationship, because this is someone you told everything to, who knew all of you. And then when that ends, you kind of think it like affects a part of your soul.
Yeah.
I've struggled with it, but I've had it. And I'm not naive enough to think it'll never happen again.
True.
It'll happen again, and you're prepared for it, and I'm sure it'll hurt. Just the same. Like, I don't think any lessons that you learn in life can like prepare you for the loss of a breakup. Yes, there's certain things you can do that will help, but any breakup is hard.
That's incredible. It really, really is tough. It's difficult to let go, because every single person that walks into your life, they're always there for a reason, and some are just there for a season.
Yeah. And I think also in friendships, and one thing I think I've gotten better with, you can't expect too much of friendships. People are human beings. So, I used to get really annoyed with one friend because I would put in all the effort. I would always make plans and do this, and, she was a bit flaky. But now she's one of my closest friends, and I love her because that's who she is. You've got to embrace, she's flaky, and I'm going to put in more of the effort. It's just who she is, love her. But once you stop with expecting someone to conform to what you think is a good friend,
correct,
then you will be a far happier person.
It's so true. And so many relationships and friendships are exactly the same. And it's why friendships don't actually really last, is because you walk into a relationship or friendship with so much expectation from that person. They must message you. They must check in how you're doing.
Yes.
For me personally, I have a very, very small circle. But I mean, if we don't talk to each other for 2 weeks, it's chilled. Because when we see each other again, it's like we pick up where we left off, And we had 2 weeks to build up our life story so we can come back and be like,
something to say.
You never knew what happened last week to me, So I can understand that perspective. And a lot of people, I think they put themselves in a position of expecting too much from other people.
And then you're bound to be disappointed.
You really
Nobody
are.
Has to be everything to you.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me something this is a very important question. Who were you then and who are you now?
Oh my gosh.
Deep breaths.
I think I've always been someone who had high hopes and dreams for myself. And the problem with that, it's a good thing to have hopes and dreams, but you always anticipate that by now you're going to have all your shit figured out.
So true.
And you don't. You really don't. And I'm hoping that 50-year-old, but I mean, if I don't, that's okay. I actually want to propose something like, I'm 40, I'm unmarried, and I don't have children. My life isn't what I anticipated it would be, but it's still so beautiful. And I'm still so happy. And maybe can I come back again in 10 years and answer who I am?
That's great. So season 15 of Switch On, we're bringing her back.
Yes.
She's walking in with kids and a beautiful man.
And then I'm going to tell you who I am.
In the next 10 years of your life, what do you think would be the most important aspect that you'd like to achieve?
So I think family is really important to me. It is. I get a little bit, I think. And it's one thing I do kind of take a little bit, when people ask me, why don't you have kids? I'm like, mind your own business.
Yeah. It's not about you.
And I do think to get where I am, voluntarily or involuntarily, mindfully, not mindfully, there have been sacrifices, and that's come with missing social engagements, missing going out on dates, never been on Tinder, never been on a blind date. So these are kind of things.
Never been on Tinder?
Never been on Tinder.
No ways. For real?
For realsies. So I feel like there are definitely things that have lacked, which I'm now in a place where I see this, I see it, and it becomes, because it never, when I saw other people having babies and starting their families, it was never something that kind of, okay, I want, that's the space I want to be in. I was so content with where I was, and I was so focused on my lane that now when I see it, it like triggers something each and every time I see it. So that just kind of means that it is something that I want. And the same way what I have now has been taken a lot of hard work in building. I know it means I have to go on that date. I have to go on. Do you know anyone, Kyle?
I do, actually. I really do. About 10, and then we'll just line them up, and me and you can pick them together.
We're speed dating.
We can do a little bit of a speed dating session. It's so incredible to hear you say the things that are more important to you now. And, you know, I relate to that so much because I'm sacrificing constantly. There's family engagements I'm not able to meet. And
everyone thinks you're an arsehole.
Yeah, it's like, I can't be there. I want to,
Yes.
but I can't, you know, because there's a certain level. And you get to a point in your life where I think you yourself was also like, well, you know, I haven't really focused a lot of that part of my life, and now I think it's important. So I want to make my niece's first birthday or her graduation.
And you've seen whatever you give focus and energy and love to, it grows, right? Like you're watering that plant. And one thing I haven't nurtured is that side of my life, which I think now I'm going to actively and mindfully give attention to it.
That's incredible. I have one last question for you. What is the biggest spiritual highlight of your life?
Spiritual highlight. I went to India, to Sai Baba's ashram with my mom last year.
Yeah.
It was...
It's remarkable.
I just came back. Like people like would literally saying, you look like you're glowing. And like, no, I'm not pregnant. But Sai Baba, it was just, and actually getting to meet Sai Baba, listen to him talk every day. It was just the most. So any kind of retreat like that, I would really,
recommend to as much people as possible. Is there a lot of things that you learned while you were in India?
I'd lived in India for 7 months.
Okay.
And that was incredible. I and I've gone back with my mom to ashrams every now and then. She pulls me, and my mom's very into spiritual. She like meditates for an hour a day. I don't know how anyone does.
I don't know.
Meditation for an hour. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm getting there. As we grow older, we look at our parents like they're completely foreign. Yeah. You know?
It's so true. It's like, who are you? And how did I not discover this about you when I was younger?
Yes.
You know?
Well, I can see it with my mom. She's constantly evolving. Like she wasn't that, person that meditated at all.
Yeah.
And I've watched her evolve into this person, which is beautiful over the last 40 years that I've seen her just evolve. So it means there's chance for me, there's hope for me.
It's true. I mean, my mom has also really changed over the years, and she was a single parent back then, and it must have been really difficult for her. And it's so crazy. On our previous episode, we actually spoke very much in depth about this, about how we viewed our parents when we were younger, and as you get older, you have a third-party perspective and being like, well, you cannot be angry for the way they dealt with certain situations. They didn't really have a choice. They didn't have the education that myself and you have. There wasn't podcasts like this. There wasn't shows like this about self-help and how to deal with trust issues or how to deal with a gay baby, or do you know what I mean? There was none of this for them. So it must have been really crazy, and I'm so glad to hear about your mom's evolving. That's amazing. She sounds beautiful.
She is beautiful. I'm very blessed.
Meditation for an entire hour.
5 minutes in my brain is bing, bing,
yeah.
Bing.
I start like making pictures in my mind at the same time.
Okay, not mind mapping, meditation.
Get back to my breath, please. Get back to my breath. Sashi, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been absolutely incredible, and thank you for being vulnerable and for teaching us as much about kindness, loyalty, and all the characteristics you've adapted over the years. It's really been amazing to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
You can follow Shashi on all of our social media accounts. We're going to link everything down below. A huge thank you to all the sponsors, Vodcast TV, Clark Media, the whole Switch On team. It's been absolutely incredible. Don't forget, you can stream this episode on Apple Podcasts, podcast, YouTube, Spotify. And do me a favor, as I said in the beginning, share the moments that inspire you. I want to know from this specific episode, what did you learn about what Shashi had to say? Does everyone get your name wrong all the time?
So it's Sashi.
Sashi. There we go.
And
there's an H.
But there's an H. I don't know. My parents were just messing with people. They throw in a silent first H for no reason at all.
Thank you for watching.